Hi all, welcome to this long awaited Marquee Matchup predictions video. Been slacking obviously for this for about the last month or so, but if you can smash the links would be awesome. Sub to the channel if you're new, follow me on Twitter at @GIsALegend. All the links are down below for posting the channel and social media links as always. And remember to hit that notification bell so you know when uploads are up on the channel, would be massively appreciated. And we are now taking the format of the whole month of each fixtures basically. So we've got the whole of February, 4 weeks in all. So basically EPL is our first month of focus, our first set of fixtures to focus on. So you've got obviously like Manchester United, Liverpool, you've got Everton, Liverpool, you've got Manchester City versus Chelsea, you've got Crystal Palace, West Ham. You have ample games to kind of work from throughout the month, like Chelsea, Spurs as well. So practically what you're doing is, and hopefully you're prepared, is just cover two of each team, and then obviously you just want to cover then, in EPL's case it'll probably be like exactly gold. Yes, I've got Foden in, but that's because I've not got any other Man City players to hand that I could have fit in. I have Delph, but I don't have another Spurs player, so I was kind of just like, I'll just kind of play around with it. But it's fairly straightforward. Obviously a lot of people nowadays are at the mindset where it's fairly straightforward, it's not difficult, and it's like, how do you kind of, where do you make your profit? Obviously in EPL's case you would kind of need them to kind of focus, like if it was like say Arsenal and Spurs, or like we'll just say, or Everton, Liverpool, you'd kind of need to have two from each team to kind of make it expensive, and everyone would suddenly be buying up all the Everton players, all the Liverpool players. That's the only way you'd end up making any serious profit from it. That's how Marquee Matchups have kind of developed, I'm afraid, this year. Then from there we move over to Spain. Plenty fixtures over in Spain, where we have the El Clasico between Real Madrid and Barcelona at the end of the month. That's kind of like the marquee game in the month, but realistically there's not much else. You could kind of look at Atletico, Real Madrid, but that's just recent. Their teams have recently been playing within the division. You could look at Villarreal, Sevilla as another alternative. But the way we're trying to format this just now is to not really say, oh, this is a 7 out of 10. If I was to be realistically honest, for what I would expect, for the way they're seeming to do it now, is like at least 2 to 3 big games, and then they'll chuck one small game in, like Sevilla Barcelona's another alternative. If I was honest, I think they will probably try one of the weeks, when it's the FA Cup in a couple of weeks time, they'll maybe make FA Cup one week, but then, or they'll try and hope and pray that there's like a cup weekend for everywhere. But Real Madrid Barcelona, when that happens, I would assume that could be very, very expensive, but also be actually giving you a worthwhile pack. We've had 1 week where we got given a 50k pack just for one of the individual routes, and it was like 6-7k to do. If we would have that again, it would kind of be a bit crazy. Then over to France, plenty games in there. St Etienne is a prime game, I think, that could happen in the month. St Etienne having a very impressive season, but regardless, you've got Monaco, Lyon. Obviously Monaco are not firing on all cylinders. Nantes and Bordeaux is another alternative that stands out in the month. But I would honestly say PSG and St Etienne. St Etienne sit 4th, PSG first. Like St Etienne could be pushing into Champions League for the first time in a long, long time. Then Bordeaux, Toulouse, as long as you're, as I'm saying, as long as you're covered with 2 from each team, and then either mix of nations, mix of rarity, then you should be fine. Like obviously, like the big 5 leagues, it's all, you're usually wanting to prepare for all gold, and in some teams' cases, all you want is like one team where the gold are a little bit lighter than others, and that is where you suddenly can find your profit machine. But I would say cards like Hamuna, Roniger, Toure, Mendy, Kerrer, Rami, Mandanda, Magnan, Sabali, Remy, there's tons to work with, and it's kind of brilliant in that aspect. Then over to Italy, there's tons from Lazio, Roma, which is quite honestly I think will happen at the end of the month. unless obviously they have a fixture change. Atalanta versus Milan could be another standout game in the month. In all honesty, it's happened, but Atalanta and AC have already happened, if memory serves me right. But you've got ample to work with across the big leagues of Italy, and it's just a case of same rules apply. In Atalanta's case, you'd probably look at like Ilicic. Ilicic and Zapata will be very common to use for it, but Italy doesn't really have as much this month compared to other leagues. It is also worth noting with the Lazio Milan game, it is the Coppa Italia that's featured, so be prepared for that when it drops. But as I say, don't be surprised if it does feature anyway. But Lazio and Roma, then when they have their league game, falls into March, so I would assume one of the games will happen. It depends which one. So be prepared regardless. I think I would hope there would at least be a little bit of hype on it, because if you've got the same game happening twice in a week, or near enough practically twice in a week, it's when a bit of hype does kind of kick in. Turkey, not too much really on this for what I've seen. Besiktas Fenerbahce at the end of the month seems to be the standout game, and pretty much like the only game. The only other options I can see happening are if it's like Besiktas in a fixture, maybe if it's whoever's up there in the top 4 that come that week, or depending who they have. Same for Fenerbahce or Besiktas, because Fenerbahce is not playing too great this season, so potentially whoever Fenerbahce could be playing could have that influence. But Turkey, I would say, as long as you're covered for exactly gold, but also covering a batch of the silvers across a few of the teams. But like Kazım Pazev's got Trezeguet, but between like Besiktas, Fenerbahce, Besiktas, you're not really struggling. Then Germany, honestly, with player of the month now in this, it makes this a little bit more expensive. Bayern and Stuttgart were very expensive, if you noticed that, so there was a fair bit of hype and a fair bit of coinage to be actually made from that particular route. In terms of the Bundesliga though, I would honestly say if you can keep like Mönchengladbach, Bayern prepared, that's saying that though, that is kind of the end of the month, but it falls into the marquee matchup for the 28th. So even though it's a game that falls into March, usually falls into the last marquee matchup of the month. That's kind of why I'm still mentioning these type of games. But you've kind of got to also keep in mind if there's any like cup games, like the Pokal for example. Obviously we had that earlier in the day, like earlier in the week even. But Leverkusen Dusseldorf is probably one of those smaller games that could sneak in Germany. But don't be surprised if like Dortmund, Leipzig, Mönchengladbach were to suddenly be given just like whoever the face in the month of February was to suddenly be Dortmund, like suddenly appearing. But you've got to factor in with the Europa League and the Champions League that Bundesliga might have a bit of hype on that basis. Now jumping on from there, as you can see, we have made an absolute kind of like mishmash mess of the teams that like the EPL and the Bundesliga have for the Champions League. So you see Liverpool, you see Schalke, you see Man City, you see Bayern Munich, you see Manchester United, and you see Dortmund, and Spurs. So what I've done is I've tried to build a team that encompasses all these type of teams, but also just to kind of show what's out there for availability. So like obviously majorly you've got Liverpool, Mangala and Stambouli would suddenly prove quite popular for Man City and Schalke. Rafinha for Brazil, but Paco Alcacer is Spanish. But the thing is as well, as long as you've got UCL cards as well, I'd imagine you should be well and truly covered. Like realistically, I think they would probably go Liverpool and Bayern Munich, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Dortmund and Spurs, or even like one of the other. But either way, they'll probably look at one of the games. Like Manchester United has PSG, but obviously when I was building this I thought, well, you can't really throw a PSG way into this, but in this case, as long as you've got 2 from each team and then a handful of the UCL cards, like the base cards that they had, then like the +1s. I think if you had, say, the rares from either the EPL, Bundesliga, you should be well, or even, and in Lagoon's case as well, then you should be well and truly covered. Then over to the same style again, going with a mix of Barcelona, Inter Milan, Juventus, Lyon, Real Madrid and Ajax, just to name a few. And Atletico, but it's actually kind of mental what you can kind of build. This is obviously an 85 chem squad with a lot of loyalty thrown in, and as you see, we've got 2 UCL cards. We've got Chillison and Van de Beek. But honestly, if you were to actually do this type of route, you wouldn't actually need to do this obviously kind of craziness, because you would never put an 84 rated card in this particular SBC. I think Real Madrid would be a very likely shout due to being holders, but Ajax I wouldn't be surprised to see as well, because of obviously the transfers that have been going on with De Jong going over and possibly Delight maybe going over in the summer as well. So there's definitely a lot of business to be had, but regardless, it's going to be interesting how they can incorporate it. But I feel there is definitely room for it to happen. But as long as you're prepared from a Champions League perspective as well, because I believe there's possibly going to, if there's like man of the match card for example to feature as well, then you never know what could happen. Then from a Europa League perspective, we obviously have Inter Milan, you've got Sevilla, you've got Napoli, AC Milan, Lazio, Sporting Lisbon, Villarreal. So there's plenty to work with in terms of, in Valencia, just to name a few. Obviously in Valencia's case they have Celtic, but there's honestly, it just shows as well, this is fairly easy to put together using like Borja Valero. Borja Valero kind of makes it all work if it's like if there's not nations. But saying that, when you look at the squad, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nations. So in realism, unless they suddenly put a max nations requirement in, it's not going to be too difficult to put together. But same rules apply. As long as you're covered for 2 from every team, then you're well and truly covered. In terms of other games that they could suddenly put in throughout the month, you could see Celtic Hibs, or any of the Hibernian in general, or Celtic in general. Games in Greece like PAOK and Olympiacos, Kaiser Chiefs Orlando Pirates, the Melbourne Derby, PSV Feyenoord, Al Hilal Al Ittihad, who have done a lot of business themselves in the transfer market, and it's AEK Athens versus Panathinaikos. But that's just some of the games that could drop as well. But hopefully you find this useful, folks. As I said, let me know what you think of the new format. As I said, it's just trial and error at the moment. But smash like as always, folks. Sub to the channel if you're new. Follow me on Twitter at GIsLegend. Take it easy all. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you all later.